How many books did I read in the month of March? Stick around and find out. Hi friends, welcome back to Pages and Chaos, and I read 10 books in the month of March. So middle grade March is usually a huge month for me, but I did read books that were not middle grade last month because I actually had 2 books that I had to read for assignments for school, plus I had a book that I was reading for my Book of the Month Vault series. So yeah, I had a lot done and a lot read, and I'm here just to tell you a little bit about my ratings for those books and whether or not I had a good month. So first up was a book that I read for my graphic novel book review assignment. That was Persephone, Hades, Torment. This, I did really like the illustrations. It is supposed to be a different view of what actually happened with the Hades and Persephone tale and myth. And Hades is not the villain, so to speak, that everyone thinks he is. He was actually struck by Cupid's arrows, and that is why he is falling for Persephone. But Persephone falls for him as well and goes down willingly. Now, I wanted a little bit more meat to this story. I gave this 3 stars. It was enjoyable, but it was a lot of I don't know, the story was just turned on its head, but very short, nothing meaty to it. The characters or the other, gods and people that were brought into this, we got a little bit of some of their interactions, but nothing really added to the story. It kind of if I didn't know the original myth, I kind of would just be well, nothing's really happening. There are a few scenes where things happen. There are some trigger warnings because, again, it is based off of the original myth. So do take that into account. Again, I think the illustrations were done beautifully. I just didn't enjoy this as much. It's probably because I'm spoiled by the Lore Olympus graphic novel series that I'm reading right now. So yeah. The next book that I read for my assignment was the first book in the Murderbot Diaries, and that is All Systems Red. This is a novella series. This was for my sci-fi/AI book review assignment. And this was actually the last book that I read in the month of March. I actually finished it on April 1st, but I'm counting it for March. I really like this. I am not a sci-fi girly, but I think the fact that this take and this story about Murderbot, who is a droid but is self-aware, has human feelings. I think it was done in a way that I didn't expect to see in a sci-fi book about, murder bots or just robots, droids, humanoids in general. There were a few books on this list, and I actually was recommended, no hate to my librarians because they, they clearly enjoy the sci-fi genre, whereas I don't, but the 2 books that they recommended me, I tried, and they just weren't for me. It was too much of the science-y fiction droid part without anything else. So I DNF'd both of those. It was Neuromancer, and I didn't even get to try the other one because my library didn't have a copy of it. But Neuromancer, which I know is a classic sci-fi book, I just couldn't get into it. So I switched over to All Systems Red, and I loved it. I gave this 4 stars. So All Systems Red is the first book that follows Murderbot, which he calls himself that, who is a security droid who has been assigned by the company for the scientists on their missions, their exploration missions, things like that, when they're going out and exploring these planets and doing all these things for their assignment. And all he wants to do is just stay in his room and watch the series or TV shows that he has downloaded and hacked. He's not supposed to have them. He has learned how to hack his own system so that he's not just this droid without any feelings. I love that he has feelings. I love that he is self-aware. And basically on this mission, all things go wrong. So now he has to figure out, does he help these humans more than just what his assignment is? Because he really doesn't like humans. He doesn't like interacting with them. Or is he just going to do what's expected of him and then go back and watch his, his series and things like that? And I just loved this. I definitely want to pick up the next book. I want to see where this goes. So yeah, I really enjoyed that book. And then the last non-middle grade book that I read was This Spells Love by Kate Robb. This was the book prompt that I picked for the March book of my Book of the Month Vault series. And I gave this this 4.5 stars, 4 to 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. There were things that I loved about Gemma and her personality and her becoming self-aware. I love Dax. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more interactions with certain characters in the books. I felt like it was fast-paced in a way that wasn't rushed, in my opinion, but I definitely loved a lot of this book. A couple of things that just knocked it down for me was that I wanted to see more of Gemma and Dax's friendship versus just what happened in their relationship. So in case you haven't heard in all the other times that I read this book and I gave my synopsis, this is just a quick take on Gemma, who wants to forget her ex. So she casts this spell with her aunt and her sister, and it turns out that she has to seal it with a kiss, and her best friend Dex applies. But when she goes back in her past, it turns out that she also has erased Dex's memories of her. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I definitely want to read more by Kate Robb. And now for the middle grade books. First up was The Map of Stories. This is the third book in the Pages of Co series, and I gave this 4 stars. I really like this series. So this is about Tilly and Oscar, who are book wanderers, and I can't give too much away because it would be spoilers for the first 2 books, but now they are still on this adventure to try to figure out why these people who are villains are trying to stop book wandering, things like that. And I just enjoyed this so much. I love Tilly. I love Oscar. I love their adventures. I love all the things that they find out when they go travel into these stories and just interact with all of these characters. There's so many different nostalgic characters. Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and in this one I believe we come across Shakespeare. So yeah, I love this and I can't wait to pick up the next book. So next up was The Gilded Girl, and this is a retelling of The Little Princess, or a reimagining, and I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. This was a blind date with a book that I got last year, and I was so happy that I was able to pick it up. This is about Izzy and Emma. Izzy is a servant girl. Emma is a formerly rich girl who was sent to Miss Posterity's school of practical magic, but then when her father dies, it turns out that she has now become a servant because she has all these debts to pay off, and she's no longer able to pay because her father's inheritance has gone to paying debt and things like that. And I just loved the interactions between Izzy and Emma. I love Emma figuring out what life is like as a servant, kind of being a little bit humbled, but not so humbled to the point where she was such a snob. But then also Izzy, the servant girl, I felt like had to be humbled a little bit in this book. And I just loved the interactions between these two. I loved the ending of this book. This was just such an adorable read, and I definitely recommend picking this up. Next up was the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. This is book 2, The Sea of Monsters. I really enjoyed this, so I don't want to give too much away about the first book because it'll be spoilers, but this is about Percy, who now finds out more about his family. He goes on a quest to find the Golden Fleece here, because we have a situation with a prophecy that could go one of 2 ways, and this prophecy deals with a tree that is outside of Camp Half-Blood and could possibly be contributing to so many things going wrong in Camp Half-Blood. I enjoyed this. They definitely travel to the Sea of Monsters and find out a whole bunch of new things. There's a new character in here that I really enjoyed, and I liked finding more about him. I can't say too much because, again, it's spoilers, but I can't wait to pick up book 3. I really feel like all these series that I started are just so good, and I can't wait to continue them. All right, now for a book that I didn't enjoy so much. This is The Grace of Wild Things. I gave this 3 stars. So this is supposed to be Anne of Green Gables inspired story. I felt like this was Anne with magic. There were some things changed, like the Marilla character is completely different, but I felt like I could have enjoyed this story, and I did enjoy the story, the magic behind the story. Grace trying to learn how to do magic in order to be able to stay with this witch in the woods, even though this witch is known for being evil and gobbling up hearts and things like that. All of that story should have stood on its own with no reference to Anne whatsoever. I felt the Anne part of this was pointless. because literally every single scene that we see in Anne of Green Gables is copy paste here. We get the scene where she hits Gilbert over the head with the slate. His name's not Gilbert in here. I actually forget what his name is, but he's a fairy. She does that. There's the scene with the, the cherry cordial, and the scene where her best friend's sister gets it. Like every single scene was literally copy and paste into this book. And there was no need for this. This story would have stood on its own so lovely and in such a way that this would have made it so much more enjoyable. So while I love the story part, I felt like it should have had no connection to Anne whatsoever, because it wasn't like just little hints of, oh yeah, there's like the Anne inspired character, or the just like little hints of it. Like it was just copy paste and it didn't make sense. Like there was no need for that. So I gave this 3 stars. I felt like it probably would have been a higher rating if there was no Anne reference, because I love Anne, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like there was no need for that in here. Next up is the 3rd book in the Vanderbeekers series, and this is the Vanderbeekers to the Rescue, and I just adore this series. So this is about 5 siblings who live on 141st Street in Harlem. They are a mixed family, and every single story so far, they seem to get themselves in a little bit of trouble, and the whole book is them trying to undo the mistakes that they made. And in this case, their mother, who runs a bakery business out of their house, has just gotten an invite to do a spread in a magazine, but unfortunately they messed up her chances. And part of the reason that they do that is because they speak to somebody they're not supposed to speak to. So they're not only trying to fix what they did and help their mother get back into where she needs to be to get this spread, but there's also some mysterious gifts that keep showing up on their doorstep. So they're not only trying to deal with that, but they're also trying to help fix the mistake that they made for their mom and help make sure that her business is safe. So I just love them. I love their dynamic. I love seeing a little bit of the changes in the twins, because at this time they're now 13 years old. So we're getting a little bit more of like the teenage aspect from them. But we still very much have that middle grade feel because of the other 3 siblings. I just love this. And the last book that fit the prompts was Amari and the Metalwork Menace. This is the 4th book in the Amari series, and I absolutely love this series. I think every single book that I read in this series was 5 stars, and this one is no different. So this takes place a little bit after the events of the 3rd series, the 3rd book in the series. Can't give too much away, but Amari is questioning whether or not she is going to go back as a junior agent, when all of a sudden we start finding out that we have a Metalwork Menace on the run, and people start turning into metal and like robots, and what's going on. And she is going to try to figure out what's going on, but also while deciding whether or not she should, because after what happened in the 3rd book, she's really not sure she wants to go back to this world at all. I love everything about this book. And I know there's one more book in the series. So B.B. Alston originally was going to make this a 3-book series, and decided to add 2 more books on. And I'm excited that he did this, because he did such a good job with this. I was worried that it was going to feel like it didn't fit, but it really does fit so perfectly. And the last book that I read for middle grade March, and just for March in general, was the group read, and that was Max and the House of Spies. This is the 1st book in a duology, and there were a lot of mixed reviews on this. So I wound up giving this 3 stars. I felt like it was very slow in the beginning, not a lot happening, and then it just like all of a sudden, the last few chapters, boom, we got like this big event. We got these big things happening. There were so many things that I loved, that like little quirkiness. There were some funny scenes with like a kangaroo, but you have to suspend your belief completely with this book. I don't know. My thoughts on this are a little weird, because it's taking place. So Max is a German child. He's a Jewish child living in Germany during World War II. And he gets put on the Kinder transport to Great Britain, and he lives with a Jewish family in Great Britain. I love how they showed so many aspects of viewpoints of different people at this time, not only in Germany, but in Great Britain. I do love that they brought in a lot of aspects with I think it was Jewish, like, so these two little, I don't know how they say them, a kobold named Berg and a diebuck named Stein. So one of them is, I think they're both from like Jewish folklore. And I love that. And I love that element. And apparently they play a bigger role in book 2. But I just felt like you had to suspend your belief just a little bit too much. And it took a little bit too much away from the events of what this story is and what is happening and what the history was. So while there were a lot of enjoyable parts in the book, I just feel like Max becoming a kid spy during World War II is just a little too much for me. So I gave this 3 stars. I don't know if I'm going to pick up the second book, though, honestly. Well, there you have it. Those are the books that I read in March. It was a very packed month, as you can see. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. Have you read any of these books? Did you participate in Middle Grade March? What are all your thoughts? Are you intrigued by any of these books as well? You know, let me know everything down in the comments. And if you are a little too shy to comment, but you do want to let me know that you were here, then you can leave me some kind of magical emoji down in the comments, because a lot of the books that I read for this month dealt with magic in some sort of way. That's all I have for now. Bye.